Have you ever felt like there's a part of you that you don't control? Maybe you say something without thinking and wonder, where did that come from? Or perhaps you make decisions that seem to go against what you truly want. What Jung discovered is that we are not as conscious of ourselves as we believe. Beneath the surface of our minds, there is a force that guides us, limits us, and sometimes even betrays us. The unconscious. When I started reading Carl Jung for just 5 minutes a day, I didn't expect my worldview to change, but it did. And today, I want to share with you what I learned on this journey, exploring the hidden corners of the human psyche. Before we continue, let me ask you, have you ever wondered why you repeat certain patterns in your life? Why you attract certain types of people or react in ways you don't fully understand? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because that's exactly what we're going to explore today. To understand ourselves better, imagine the mind as an iceberg. The visible part, which we believe we know, is only a fraction of who we truly are. Beneath the surface, in the depths, lies our unconscious, where forgotten memories, traumas, repressed desires, and influences that shape us without our awareness are stored. Jung discovered that within this hidden ocean, there are powerful forces, archetypes, universal symbols present in all cultures and eras. They are behavioral patterns that we inherit, influencing how we see the world and interact with others. One of the first archetypes I discovered was the shadow. The shadow encompasses everything we reject about ourselves. These are thoughts, desires, and emotions that we don't want to admit we have. For example, if you grew up in an environment where anger was frowned upon, you might have learned to repress it. But anger doesn't disappear. It hides in the shadow. And when you least expect it, manifests in emotional outbursts or passive-aggressive attitudes. Jung said that the more we ignore our shadow, the more power it has over us. But if we recognize and integrate it, it can become a source of energy and authenticity. When I started reading Jung, I noticed something strange. There were parts of his books that made me uncomfortable. Some concepts made me want to close the book and think about something else. But that was the key. When something makes us uncomfortable, it's because it touches something deep within us. Jung calls this projection. We project onto others what we do not accept in ourselves. If someone bothers you for no apparent reason, it could be because they reflect something you don't want to see in yourself. Have you ever been irritated by someone without reason? Could it be that you're seeing in that person an aspect of yourself that you prefer to ignore? Here is where the journey of self-discovery begins. Every time something affects us emotionally, instead of reacting automatically, we can ask ourselves, what is this showing me about myself? And here's a task for you. In the coming days, pay attention to what bothers you about others. It's possible that you're looking at a reflection of your own shadow. If this topic interests you, like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. In the next part, we will delve deeper into another key concept of Jung, the process of individuation, the path to becoming who you truly are. In the modern world, we are taught to fit in. From a young age, we are told what is right and wrong, what we should do to be accepted, and how we should behave to belong. But what happens to the part of us that doesn't fit into these molds? What about our impulses, fears, and repressed desires? Carl Jung called this process of adaptation the formation of the persona, the mask we wear to interact with the world. It is necessary. Without it, we couldn't coexist in society. But there's a problem. If we identify too much with our mask, we risk losing touch with our true essence. The real journey of self-discovery begins when we dare to remove that mask and explore what lies behind. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming the person we truly are, beyond what society expects of us. Think about it for a moment. How many of your decisions have truly been your own? And how many have been influenced by what others expected of you? Imagine someone who, since childhood, has been praised for being responsible. Over time, this person convinces themselves that their only value lies in being efficient and reliable. But deep down, they might yearn for freedom, spontaneity, or even chaos. However, since they have built their identity around responsibility, they fear exploring those other aspects of themselves. Here is where the internal conflict arises. The more we ignore certain parts of ourselves, the more power they have over us. Individuation involves recognizing all parts of our being, even those that make us uncomfortable or seem contradictory. It's not about destroying the mask, but about no longer identifying completely with it. Sometimes, life pushes us to confront what we have ignored. Jung discovered that the unconscious has mysterious ways of getting our attention. One of these ways is through dreams. Our dreams are not just meaningless images, they are messages from the unconscious. In them, symbols appear that represent hidden aspects of our psyche. For example, if you dream of being chased, it's possible that you are running away from a part of yourself that you don't want to face. If you dream of a house with unknown rooms, it could symbolize aspects of your mind that you haven't yet explored. Jung dedicated much of his life to studying symbols in dreams and discovered that each person has a unique path to individuation. There is no single method because each individual is a distinct universe. In the process of individuation, we face challenges that may seem like trials imposed by life. But in reality, these trials are opportunities to integrate what we are lacking. Jung identified several stages in this process: confronting the shadow, accepting the aspects of ourselves that we have repressed, facing projections, stopping blaming others for what is truly ours, recognizing archetypes, understanding the deep patterns that influence our lives. Integration of the self, uniting all our parts into a more authentic identity. Each of these steps is a challenge. It's not easy to accept that the image we have built of ourselves is only part of the truth. It's not simple to stop blaming others and take responsibility for our destiny. But here's the secret. When we start walking this path, we realize something profound. Everything we seek outside of ourselves has been within us all along. What are we really looking for in others? You might think it's love, companionship, or understanding. But Jung discovered that deep within our relationships, in the most secret parts of our attractions and rejections, there is an unconscious dynamic at play. Something that influences how we fall in love, how we connect, and how we project ourselves onto others. These are two internal forces that exist within all of us: the anima and the animus. Jung observed that within every man there is an unconscious feminine principle, and within every woman, an unconscious masculine principle. This is not about gender identity, but about the internal aspects of our psyche that have been repressed or neglected. The anima is the feminine side in men. It represents sensitivity, intuition, the ability to connect with the emotional world and the unconscious. The animus is the masculine side in women. It represents logic, structure, direction, and willpower. When these aspects are not integrated, they are projected onto others. This is why a man might idealize a woman as the embodiment of everything he yearns for, and a woman might feel attracted to a man who seems to represent stability or power. But here lies the danger. If we are not aware of these projections, we end up seeking outside what we lack within. Imagine someone who has always repressed their sensitivity because society taught them to be strong and rational. They will likely feel irresistibly attracted to someone who represents the exact opposite, someone spontaneous, emotional, and creative. But what initially seemed fascinating can, over time, become unbearable. What was once admired now frustrates. Why? Because they haven't realized that what they seek in the other is actually a part of themselves that they haven't yet developed. The deepest relationships are not just encounters with another person. They are mirrors that show us what we haven't integrated within ourselves. The key to personal development, according to Jung, is to stop projecting these aspects and start integrating them. For a man, this means connecting with his emotional world without fear, listening to his intuition, and developing a sensitivity that does not depend on someone else. For a woman, it means recognizing her own strength, independence, and ability to structure her life without needing someone else to do it for her. But integrating these energies is not easy. The unconscious resists change. It makes us resist the idea that we can be different from what we have always believed. And this is where many people stop. They prefer to keep projecting, to keep repeating patterns in their relationships, rather than taking on the task of looking within. True awakening occurs when we realize that everything we seek in others is already within us. The sense of completeness does not come from finding the perfect person, but from reconciling with our own being. When a man stops projecting his anima onto a woman, he begins to discover within himself the sensitivity and intuition he once sought outside. When a woman stops projecting her animus onto a man, she discovers within herself the strength and direction she once believed only another could give her. This does not mean we stop loving or having relationships. On the contrary, it means our relationships become deeper and more authentic. We no longer seek the other to complete us, but to share a path of mutual growth. Imagine for a moment that you wake up in an unfamiliar place. Everything is a mystery. There are shadows moving in the corners and echoes of familiar voices calling you from afar. You don't know who you are or how you got there. But as you advance, you realize something. Everything you see is a part of yourself. This is the metaphor of the inner journey that Jung described in his concept of the self, the deepest and truest part of our psyche. Jung discovered that within each of us, there is something greater than the ego, something that is not limited to our conscious identity or the roles we play in life. He called it the self and represented it with symbols like the circle, the mandala, or the center of a labyrinth. The self is not just what we are on the surface, but what we are destined to be. It is the totality of our psyche, including the conscious and the unconscious, the accepted and the repressed, what we know about ourselves and what we have yet to discover. When we live disconnected from the self, we feel empty, lost, or in conflict with ourselves. But when we begin to align with it, we experience a sense of purpose and authenticity that transcends any other experience. The problem is that the ego, the part of our mind that identifies with our personal history, beliefs, and image, fears losing control. The ego believes it already knows who we are. It believes our identity is based on what we do, what we possess, or how others see us. Therefore, when the unconscious sends us signals that there is something beyond this limited image, the ego resists. This resistance manifests in existential crises, inexplicable fears, and patterns of self-sabotage. In those moments when we feel life is taking us in a direction we don't understand, it is actually the self calling us to awaken. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming our most complete version, requires going through these crises, not avoiding them. The Dharma self does not communicate with words. It does not send us clear instructions or tell us exactly what to do. Instead, it speaks to us through symbols and synchronicities. Symbols appear in our dreams, intuitions, and those images that haunt us for no apparent reason. Synchronicities are meaningful coincidences, events that seem connected by something more than chance. Jung discovered that when a person begins to align with their true path, synchronicities increase. It's as if the universe is responding to our inner process. Have you ever thought about someone and suddenly they call? Or found a book or phrase just when you needed it most? That's not a coincidence. It's the self guiding us, the encounter with the self, psychological death, and rebirth. The most challenging moment of the inner journey is the encounter with the self. Why? Because to get there, we must let go of the false versions of ourselves. We must release the identity we built to please others, the fears that have kept us in the shadows, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we are capable of. It is a painful process, but it is also the only way to be reborn. Jung compared this process to the myths of heroes who descend into the underworld, face their demons, and return transformed. Each of us, at some point, will have to make this journey. When we begin to live from the self, something within us changes profoundly. We care less about external opinions. Our fears no longer paralyze us. We feel more aligned with our essence, even if we can't explain it rationally. It doesn't mean we stop having problems, but now we face them with a different perspective. We realize that every challenge is an opportunity to integrate more parts of ourselves. After all this journey, we arrive at the key question: how do we bring all this into our daily lives? Reading Jung and exploring our psyche is fascinating, but if we don't apply what we've learned, it remains just theory. And Jung warned us of something. Knowledge without transformation is not wisdom, but another form of self-deception. Awakening does not happen in an instant. It is not a sudden revelation that changes everything overnight. It is a continuous process. Jung called this process individuation, the path to the totality of our being, the effort to integrate the unconscious into our conscious life. Every choice, every challenge, and every crisis pushes us toward this goal. But few dare to walk this path to the end. Some get stuck in fear, others prefer the comfort of the familiar. But those who continue discover something unexpected: true freedom. When we truly begin to live from the self, certain changes occur in how we think, feel, and relate to the world. These are subtle but profound signs. Less fear of change. Before, change terrified us. Now we see it as part of growth. Greater authenticity. We no longer need to impress or fit in. We are who we are, without unnecessary masks. Healthier relationships. We stop projecting onto others and start seeing them for who they truly are. Greater connection with our intuition. We begin to listen to the signals from the unconscious without ignoring them. More moments of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences increase, as if the universe is responding to our inner process. But this transformation does not happen automatically. It requires commitment. The ego will try to resist. It will try to distract us with superficial pleasures, excuses, and fears. It will tell us that it's easier to go back to what we know. And you know what? It's right. It is easier to stay where we are, but what do we really want? Integrating knowledge. Practical actions. Jung did not want his ideas to be just an intellectual game. He wanted them to transform lives. And for that to happen, practice is necessary. Here are 3 ways to integrate this knowledge into your daily life. Dialogues with the unconscious. Spend a few minutes each day writing what you feel without filtering. Ask your unconscious what you need to know, and let the answers surface without judgment. Observe your projections. The next time someone evokes an intense emotion in you, positive or negative, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing in this person? Work with your dreams. Before going to sleep, ask yourself, what do I need to know? Write down your dreams when you wake up and look for the symbols that appear repeatedly. Practice conscious solitude. Dedicate moments to be with yourself, without distractions. The unconscious needs silence to speak. Challenge your repetitive patterns. If you always react the same way in certain situations, try doing something different. Breaking patterns is key to individuation. Here is where many people make a mistake. They believe that reaching a certain level of self-knowledge means the work is done. But Jung said that individuation is a lifelong process. It is not a destination to be reached, but a way of living. There will always be new shadows to integrate, new challenges that push us to evolve, new parts of ourselves to discover. And that is the beauty of this path. We never stop growing. Each stage brings new questions, new crises, new opportunities. But when we accept this process as part of life, we stop resisting and start flowing with it. Now, I want to leave you with a question. Not to answer here, but to take with you on your own journey. If you stopped fearing change, if you could be completely yourself without fear of judgment, what would your life be like? Think about it. Write it down. If you want, share it in the comments. And if this video resonated with you, if at any moment you felt something within you awaken, it is not a coincidence. This is your call to the inner journey. Here on the channel, we will continue to explore together the mysteries of the unconscious, human relationships, and inner transformation. So if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next video, where we will delve into another fascinating aspect of deep psychology.